to do your intro and presentation. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat for them to answer later on.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that. So I'm a user representative of Enzyme Finance together with Felix Hartmann.
Hey guys.
Hi. Yeah, so we're really excited to have you guys here to build on HackMoney and hopefully on Enzyme. I think we'll start off with a small video from Mona, who is one of the founders of Enzyme. And then we'll head over to a demo with Felix and all of the other good stuff.
Hey everyone, and welcome to HackMoney 2021. I'm super excited to tell you a little bit about Enzyme and the prizes we're going to be offering during the hackathon. For those of you who don't know about Enzyme, Enzyme is a completely decentralized asset management infrastructure built on Ethereum. Enzyme empowers individuals and communities to build, scale, and monetize vault strategies on-chain that can interact with the entirety of DeFi. We're going to be offering 3 prizes during this hackathon, which will be paid out in MLN. And we've provided some inspiration and guidelines for you, which might be helpful as your teams gather. Our team is always happy to support, and we're excited to meet you in our Discord channel.
Okay, so I pass it over to Felix, who will fill you in on the details of what Enzyme is.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Giel. And thanks for having us, HackMoney. So thanks everyone for joining in. Today, I want to just cover really quick, what is Enzyme? Because some of you might be hearing about Enzyme for the first time. And Enzyme is a really unique product because Enzyme really was the first on-chain asset management protocol that allows anybody to either, start their own crypto hedge fund, their own, mutual fund. Or now we start seeing treasuries being launched on Enzyme, where you have entire protocols around the entire treasury using the Enzyme infrastructure. Because what Enzyme offers is twofold. One, if you're an investor, it allows you to find vaults of funds that you can invest in with a proven track record. Because ultimately times we see APYs and we don't really know, is it real? Same way goes in TradFi. In TradFi, there's been the history's littered with people lying about performances, but the blockchain doesn't lie. Since Enzyme is run on Ethereum, you can check really transparently how has a fund really performed? You can see every single trade they ever made. You can see their AUM. You can see who is deposited, how much of the deposit, are people pulling out, right? So it's fully transparent. And unlike TradFi, it's available 24/7, which means those funds, they trade 24/7. If you want to redeem, if you want to add, it's always available. And on the flip side, whether you are somebody who wants to start a fund or whether you are a protocol that wants to set up the treasury, or whether you're a strategist that wants to have automated vaults, and this is something that Giel will talk about as well, because there are automated strategies that you can set up using Enzyme. You can set up a vault in minutes right now, knock on wood. Gas fees are so low, it costs you about $9 to $30 to set up an Enzyme vault. So if you ever thought about setting up an Enzyme vault, it probably now is the time, because during the high gas fee times, it used to cost like $1,000. So right now it's the perfect time to set one up. Only takes a minute, one single transaction, and we've got all kinds of DeFi integrations, which instead of telling you about them, I'll show you them in a demo in a second. We've really got everything from lending integration, staking, AMM pools. By now, we're getting things like with Zulu, things like Wi-Fi integrated, Curve integrated, staking. Like I already said that, staking with Stake ETH. So a lot of exciting things are coming, and also access to over 200 plus tokens. Many of them you can't even find, on traditional, decentralized exchanges, because we're using integrations like Synthetics, for example, where you can trade gold, oil, inverted different tokens and so forth. So here's just a quick list of all the integrations we have, because some people might know Enzyme from back in the day, from the version 1 days, where all you really had was Uniswap, Kyber, I think 0x, just basic trading. But now, Enzyme is really a full-fledged, I call it a DeFi mega aggregator, where you have every single tool of DeFi integrated, from Aave, AlphaHamar, Compound, Curve, Idle Finance, Kyber, Paraswap, Synthetics, Uniswap, 0x. And then upcoming, we've got everything from AlphaHamar version 2, Balancer version 2, borrowing using things like Aave, Uniswap version 3 coming, and Urine Vaults. And, when you look at the list of names, a lot of this came with Enzyme. Well, it was called Melon version 1 and then Enzyme version 2. And Zulu is essentially our version 3. So a lot of the stuff came in the last 6 to 12 months. So you can only imagine what we'll be integrating in the next 12 months. And so this is really exciting because, just to share historic AUM, I really got involved with Enzyme back in June of last year, literally 1 year ago today. And back then, I think we had $800,000 in total value locked. As of this morning, because we just had Unslashed Finance move a lot of their vault to Enzyme, they moved $80 million to Enzyme. We now have almost $110 million in total value locked. So that's an amazing growth from 800,000 a year ago to $110 million in a year. And it's only going to keep growing like that, especially as Enzyme goes after more and more, like becomes more and more the DeFi mega aggregator, and also that perfect vehicle for treasuries, for vaults to use Enzyme as infrastructure, because we've partnered with a lot of programs like, for example, Unslashed uses Enzyme, Rari Capital uses Enzyme. More and more protocols are saying, hey, you know what? Let's focus on what we do best, like for example, creating strategies through yield aggregation. But let's use Enzyme as a front end, as a perfect vehicle where people can easily invest, easily redeem. They can see performances. It's heavily audited, super secure. And that's really where Enzyme is carving out its niche. And then also from May to June, not only has, of course, TVL has grown quite a bit because of Unslashed with plus 248% in the last month. But everything else is growing equally fast. We've seen an increase, almost 30% increase in vaults. So for a quick note, I think when version 1 was shut down in January, we switched to version 2. We only have 300 vaults. So the amount of vaults has literally doubled since we launched version 2 in those 5 months. And then equally the amount of deposits, meaning the amount of individual people investing in these different Enzyme funds, has also grown 16% in the last few months alone. It's now standing at 1,528 investors using Enzyme to allocate to vaults and funds. And I think that's now a good time for me to share my screen. Giel, maybe you can unshare real quick. I'll share mine. Perfect. There we go. Perfect. So we're already right there here in Enzyme. Let me just make my screen full screen. Perfect. And so this is the landing page, right? On first glance, can browse and see all the different funds. So clearly we have the really big, Unslashed Finance Fund 1 with 81 million. We've got a number of multi-million-dollar funds. Technically, I think they do a long short fund, Rhino Fund. They've been with us since version 1. Yang Express from the one and only Vengarian. Lots of cool. And even as you see, Melon Treasury Vault, right now we're using Enzyme ourselves for our treasury. Right now we're just holding Melon, but if there comes a time where we want to make an OTC trade to perhaps create some liquidity, we can. And here you can filter by everything, so for example, we go to browse all. It's loading. Let me see if I need to move something around. There we go, sort by. You can sort by anything, for example, the oldest funds. You can sort alchemies, for example, Giel. You can sort and filter by everything. I believe here, filters, you can filter by size, filter by performance, filter by performance in this month, what denomination. So everything is super sortable. Beyond that, much more exciting, let's look into vault managers. So I've set up a bunch of funds over the last few months. And you can go in there, for example, and say, hey, what can I do with it, right? On one hand, you've got trade swaps. So we've got our own interface where it pulls you the best pricing and tells you, hey, where's the best price to make these trades? Whether that's Curve, Kyber, Paraswap. So, let's say I have, let's say Sushi. Oh, because I don't hold that in this one right now. But anyway, so if I type it in, it tells you the best price. You can swap it all from the interface. Liquidity-wise, we have Uniswap integration, so you can add to Curve pools, Uniswap pools, and of course, earn the rewards. So you can even claim the CRV rewards under the rewards tab. So everything is integrated, Compound, Curve, staking. We've got staked ETH using staked pound. On yield, Compound. I think we've got Compound and Aave in here. And then smaller cool things, if you're a fund manager, you can even set rules where you say like, hey, for example, I'm not allowed, maybe you say, hey, I'm not allowed to trade let's say Doge, we don't have Dogecoin, but like, I'm not allowed to trade Dogecoin because say, hey, I don't want to touch meme tokens, right? So now investors know and trust that you won't do that. And the cool thing about it is that it's programmatically, meaning even if you wanted to, you can't do it. The vault will not allow you to violate your policies. So it's no longer, the whole idea behind decentralization is trustlessness. You no longer have to trust that a fund manager is truthful about the performance, is truthful about the ARM, is truthful about the policies. The code enforces it, right? And that's really, really cool. And let's see if there's anything else interesting I want to show. Network, if you ever want to keep up to date with our network statistics, you see AUM right here, the amount of deposits, the amount of vaults. You can even see how much are the different funds holding in the different assets. And perhaps let me just go to show the transparency one level further. We can go, for example, let's say to TechMe, right? It's an ETH BTC fund, and you can see the performance historically on all the time frames since they launched. And you see the average return. You can even see the amount of depositors they have. In fact, you can see every single trade they made. You can go to trades and see every single trade that they made. Full transparency, something that TradFi has never been able to pull off. So it's super, super exciting. Any questions on the interface while I'm at it? Otherwise, I'll give it back to Giel. Somebody Gawain asks, is Enzyme planning to add Polygon to its network? Currently, there's no decision being made about
very good question.
Yeah,
we'll come back to it later in the presentation. Actually,
okay. So yeah, and with all that, everything's automated, even from management fees, performance fees. What I would just recommend to you right now, gas is low. The best way to learn is just to set one up. Again, costs you probably between $10 to $30 with the current gas fees, and you'll have that vehicle forever. So with that, I'll give it back to Giel.
Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay. So for the ETHGlobal Hackathon, we came up with some ideas that you could, for instance, execute to win one of the prizes. Of course, if you have a better idea or you think of something cool, definitely go for it. The first one that is still missing in the current interface is a notification system. So everything happens on-chain, but for instance, when a manager receives an investment, it will come in one denomination asset. And it can be really handy for a manager to know when it arrives, so he knows, okay, now I have to make a trade, or now I have to rebalance the portfolio. So one potential like hackathon project could be to build a notification system on top of EPNS, so Ethereum push notification service they recently launched. You can sign up through their website to get developer access. So it's still a beta access for developers, but the product is fully functional. So users can even already sign up for it. So it would be cool if somebody wants to play around with it to see if we can make a notification system to notify managers when investments are made, or when a certain asset goes up or down by a specific percentage. To notify the manager he needs to keep a close eye on his fund, or even to give the different investors just an update on their current worth, their current holdings inside these funds. So for this, you can also plug into the subgraph we have with the graph network. This is just one example. Another thing could be to upgrade the existing Dune Analytics dashboard. I'll actually quickly go into it. So a community member created this. It's very simple. It shows a number of funds as well as the Melon token price. But based on all the on-chain data and the subgraph data, you can actually do a lot more with it. So you could also, for instance, tag all addresses that interact with Enzyme, create different profiles, not only track price or number of funds, but for instance, the number of individual investors or growth of the protocol. There is another dashboard made by Jack from Messari, where he plots a few additional things. But we noticed, for instance, that both of these dashboards broke in functionality when we upgraded to the latest version of Enzyme, which happened like about a month ago. We had a big protocol upgrade. As you can see here, the number of funds stops at May 7th. As well here, also in the beginning of May, when the protocol upgrade happened, it stops while we're currently already at about 600 funds. So it would be really cool if somebody could like work on these. It's all open source, I think. You can go into like different queries, although I'm not, for instance, here. You can find a lot more information on how to work with this in the documentation of just Dune Analytics itself. So that's also one of the possibilities to spend your time on. Another would be to build a dashboard for Nansen AI, which is also like a blockchain data analytics platform. Would be really cool to have Enzyme represented on there. There are a bit like more advanced items as well. So for instance, somebody asked about Polygon. Like, to be clear, it's not on the main like development roadmap of the core team, but like personally, I'm a big Polygon user. I think Felix also like really likes their solution to reduce gas fees for common users. So it would be really cool if somebody wants to take a step at creating like a light version of Enzyme with all the integrations that are already live on Polygon, like Aave, Curve, and PowerSwap. We have these, the code available for it. It will require a lot of adjustments though, so it's not for the faint-hearted. But it could be a really interesting way. It could end up in production. I personally see a lot of value in offering like a cheaper onboarding for users besides the Ethereum main network. There's a different, there's a whole range of different things as well. You could create a brand new adapter. So set up an integration with a different protocol. One of like a developer reached out to us recently about creating an adapter for Pool Together. He's working on that right now. If you have a similar idea, like, oh, it would be really cool if, for instance, I could plug into X tokens or some other protocol that you love to use and you would like to see more people use, feel free to start working on an adapter. Like, we have the code base available on GitHub. There is a mock adapter also where you can look like which structures are needed. I'll provide a link at the end of the presentation. You can also think of like potentially like new fee policies or new trading policies that could be implemented in Enzyme. Another thing that you could look into is our Enzyme SDK. There will be a new blog post about it, I think tomorrow or the day after. The current one is a bit outdated, but there is a JavaScript or TypeScript library, if I'm not mistaken, called the Enzyme SDK, which you can use to build a basic trading bot on Enzyme. The documentation also needs a bit of work, so you will have to figure it out how it works, but we all love a challenge, right? So that's also one thing that a lot of users would love to see, like the ability to add trading bots to their vault so they can automate some things, because currently we're using PowerSwap or other DEXs for the swapping, and most of these don't support limit orders. So like creating a bot that can make limit orders would be really valuable, for instance. We also have the ability to create like a bit more complex yield farming strategies. So for instance, the Curve integration already has the ability to farm CRV tokens and other tokens like Lido tokens, convert them back into either the underlying assets in the vault, similar to what Jörn is doing, or convert them to Ether or another asset, all in one transaction. So creating this like yield generating farming strategy would also be quite interesting to offer to like users of Enzyme. There is quite some documentation you can go through. We have like the open GitHub, including this mock generic adapter code. Let me see if I still have it open. I'll quickly go through it. So here you can read a bit more about like what the structure is like. There are some comments, what an adapter can do, what its limitations are, a bit on like the syntax that is used for all of this. So if you're interested in it, I suggest to just check out the code, see how the current implementation is and what it can do. Similarly, we have these quite advanced developer documentation where you can look into like the architecture of the code base, the different names for, like, we have a fund deployer, which is used to create new funds, different type of users. So that's also one of the features. You can, for instance, delegate the trading in a fund to specific accounts. It's also something you could like start working on it, try to devise some new schemes based on this. There's like a lot of possibilities. Maybe as well, for now, we use for the price feeds mainly you know, chain-link prices. There's some other ones as well. I'm not sure if it's, yeah, in here. So if you could, well, if you can think of another way to implement a new price feed, for instance, so we can add more assets into the asset universe, feel free to make a suggestion. We also have some guidelines for contributing to the code. Maybe they're not in here, but I think they're also in the developer documentation. It's on the main branch in the Enzyme GitHub. I suggest to first read these guidelines before making, for instance, any pull requests, etc. Because we have a private GitHub repository that you can request access to. So you're working on the latest version of the code. The current version that's public on GitHub is the one that's live and in production. Similarly, here is a link to one of these Detienne analytic dashboards. And if that's not enough, if you need more inspiration, we have this website. It's called Kenny, enzyme.kenny.io, where you can go through like a whole bunch of user requests. So here you can see what users want to see, for instance, like leverage trading or like a small thing. This is more like a UI work, enabling blog posts. I think that we're actually already working on that. But you can have a look at like the feature requests. Look, maybe best to look at the newest ones. Look at the ones that have some votes. For instance, we have like the EPNS notifications in here, Matic implementation, adding a bunch of different assets like limit orders, and a whole bunch of different things. So yeah, I think that's about it for like the demo. So definitely to stay in touch with us, I suggest to join the Discord. There's a developer channel in there where you can get support from the team, from Avant-Garde Finance, which are the lead developers, as well as some of the community members. Definitely also check out our Twitter for some blog posts where we dive deeper into the workings of Enzyme. You can also check out Telegram. So yeah, maybe we can go. Hello.
Yeah, maybe we can go over some questions with these last minutes we have here. Just 2 to 3 questions, please, because we're running low on time.
Okay. So if anyone in the audience, if you have any like urgent questions, please post them in the chat. So we have a question from Gawe. who started a DAO from DAO House and wants to see if you can use superfluid in some way with Enzyme. That's a really good question. Currently, we don't directly support it, but it could be a nice way to incorporate it. So like superfluid is a protocol where you can stream money, which would be, for instance, a really cool way to, for instance, distribute the profits from a vault back to investors. Just one example. Or we could think of different things. I think superfluid definitely could be used in an Enzyme fund.
From what I understand, though, superfluid is built on XDAI, so we'd have to see.
Yes, sorry for that. Like it's XDAI. It's also on Polygon right now, so it could be combined there. I'm not sure if they have an Ethereum mainnet deployment, but yeah, maybe Felix more up to date.
Yeah, I don't see too many other questions, but I saw, Simon seems like Simon and Gawain are really ready to get going. Those two wrote the most questions. I'll definitely look forward to you two reach out to us, whether it's on Telegram or Discord. Whether it's you want to build the Polygon integration or whether it's the superfluid integration. Your ideas, are what really builds these networks, right? These are decentralized networks, and a lot of the features that you see today came from users. So I highly encourage that. And if any of you that just watch, maybe didn't ask a question, can think of something like, hey, I would love to use Enzyme, but this feature is missing. I really don't see purpose in using it until this is here, then build it, And I think, the hackathon is just like, the tip of the iceberg. We also have, Enzyme funding proposals down the road. If you say, hey, I've got this bigger idea that I want to add, you can also appeal to us, the council, and say like, hey, I could build this over the span of 6 months. This is what it would take, and we can fund that. So really encourage any developers out there to come approach us.
Yeah, exactly. We have a big treasury waiting to be spent.
And I guess also just to make a recommendation here, I would invite, so later on this week and kind of next Monday, there will be team formation sessions. So you can bring your friends actually to also build on Enzyme. So then, the more the merrier, the more people get involved in the technology, the more people learn. That's what we're kind of all going for and what we're all aiming for here. So definitely join that and kind of, recruit other people who would be very excited to build on Enzyme, as I'm sure there's a lot of people who would be. So yeah, thank you so much, for presenting here on Enzyme today. And again, if anyone has any questions, please do hop to the Discord chat. There is a sponsor-Enzyme channel where you can ask the Enzyme folks all the questions you want. And have a nice day, everyone.